say hi and to our social media this evening. Hope you all had a relaxing and reflective Memorial Day. We're going to start our music and we're going to let everybody in. Glad to see you all here.
Good evening. Good evening, all, and welcome to the Veterans Breakfast Club. I cannot imagine a better way to spend or end Memorial Day than with you all. I've been looking forward to this conversation. What an important and beautiful and wonderful holiday it is today. It's May 26, 2025. I did some calculations before we started here. This is the 157th National Memorial Day. And it started, as you know, nationally with the General Order Number 11, the Grand Army of the Republic, which was our first veterans organization in history. In 1868, Commander John Logan, former Union Army general, who's head of the Grand Army of the Republic, declared that May 30th would be designated as the date for strewing with flowers the graves of the fallen from the Civil War. And we've marked it, ever since. It was originally known as Decoration Day. It actually began, and I'm giving you some history just to warm us up here for this conversation. It began spontaneously. It's such an interesting holiday that we really there should be more work done on the origin of this remarkable holiday because it's uniquely American, nothing quite like it. It doesn't commemorate a battle. It doesn't commemorate really a peace. It doesn't commemorate any single event. It simply is meant to reflect and remember and honor those who lost their lives in service to our country. And it began, interestingly, with this strange practice that happened all around the country, north and south, every town, every village. Women would come out, and women, widows, sisters, mothers of the fallen, daughters of the fallen, they would come out and decorate the graves of the fallen with flowers. And the flowers bloom in North America first in the South. So in the South, Decoration Day was usually at the end of April. And then as the weather warmed up and the flowers started blooming further north, as you get into May, there'd be decoration days in Pennsylvania and New York. And finally, at the end of the month, by May 30th, all of North America was in bloom. And so in 1868, several years after this phenomenon had taken place, the Grand Army of the Republic kind of claimed it for its own and issued the order that the whole nation should recognize this holiday on May 30th. So it's such an interesting. It was nobody told these women to do this. They just knew that they had to do it after 750,000 Americans were killed in this catastrophe called the Civil War. And it was always, many of you will be, some of you are old enough to remember when it really was still called Decoration Day. I'm looking at you, Bob von Bargen. And and it was always May 30th, always May 30th. And then something happened. And that thing was the Uniform Monday Holiday Act of 1968 that moved so many of our public holidays to the closest Monday. And I even think there was some consideration to moving the 4th of July to the closest Monday. They didn't do that, but they did it every other holiday. They moved back Veterans Day to November 11th, 10 years later. But Memorial Day now has been a movable feast. It's now the last Monday in May. And I just read, and I'm bringing this up because of this. This is a busy weekend for anybody who lives or works or loves the veterans community. Many of us are out, in the community doing events and ceremonies, and here in Western Pennsylvania, the Traveling Wall, the Wall That Heals, is visiting, and it's a big weekend here. Um, and we go out and we see each other and we spend time together and we do honor and remember. But I think most Americans don't. I think most Americans don't. And I always confess whenever I make remarks on this day that, I was really an adult before I realized the significance and importance of Memorial Day, and I didn't really appreciate the significance of Memorial Day until I started working with veterans and getting to know veterans really well. And I just read a poll that only 48% of Americans could identify what Memorial Day was about. Less than half of Americans could identify what the holiday was for. And I just wonder if moving Memorial Day back to May 30th would make a difference. I wonder if it would help focus attention on what the holiday is for. Because right now, I mean, the holidays were moved to Mondays to create a series of 3-day weekends so that Americans could travel. It was really promoted. The Uniform Monday Holiday Act was promoted by the travel and tourist industry. And I just wonder if removing that 3-day weekend would change the meaning of the day. Or are we like, or has that, I see Mary saying, no, it wouldn't change the meaning. The horses left the barn. We're never gonna kind of recapture the sense of unified sense of kind of grief and honoring and remembering and celebrating that Memorial Day is all about. I could go on and on. It's a fascinating holiday. I love that it's in the spring because spring is the time of rebirth and renewal. Life comes out of death, life comes out of sacrifice, and that's a big theme for Memorial Day. So what I'm going to do is invite all of you or any of you to share memories of people you think of today, you're thinking of today, honoring people you'd like to remember. Let us know who they are and who they were. And I know several of you are here to do that. I see Susan Keith. Thank you, Susan, for joining us very much. And I also want to welcome somebody who hasn't been with us for quite some time, and that is Jordan Escamilla. Young Jordan, he is graduated from the United States Air Force Academy a few years ago. He's now a helicopter pilot. He's at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. And I know that he's going to want to remember his wonderful grandfather, who was a member of the Veterans Breakfast Club, who passed away a couple years ago. But we also want Jordan to kind of fill us in on his exciting career as a helicopter pilot and to let us know what it's like. Hey, Jordan, good to see you. How are you?
Really good to see you, Todd.
What are you home now, or are you at Joint Base Andrews?
I'm at Joint Base Andrews. Currently, I live in Alexandria, Virginia.
And you fly helicopters.
Yeah, I fly the UH-1, the Huey.
You fly the Huey.
I do.
Um, do they still fly Hueys?
We do.
Those have been
We're,
around quite some time.
yeah, they were designed in the 1950s. They were built in the 1960s, and they are still here in the United States Air Force to this day.
Isn't that amazing? Can I ask you, how does Joint Base Andrews celebrate? And I think that is the word. Celebrate Memorial Day. Is anything special going on at the base?
Um, we have members from our base going around the National Capital Region to different events. When you're a part of like the what we call the DMV, the District, Maryland, Virginia community, there's a lot of events that we have to cover. Um, and we are very glad to cover. There's just a lot of events honoring our veterans. It's hard to encapsulate in like one statement how much we're doing.
So you do a lot out in the community.
Yeah. So we're doing things at Arlington Cemetery. We're doing things at Joint Base Andrews, Fort Belvoir.
Wow.
There's
Wow.
a lot going on.
And what do you do? I know that you fly Huey helicopters, but what kind of missions are Hueys involved in nowadays?
Mostly what the Huey does, we're in what's called the Global Strike Command. It's one of the major commands of the United States Air Force. Um, and what they do is homeland defense. That's as far as I can get into it in this kind
Okay.
of broadcast. But anytime a sensitive component to a missile or an aircraft is being moved, we're overhead and making sure that the delivery is made safely.
Oh, so you were flying kind of security. And I mean, pardon my ignorance here, Jordan, but I really thought the Huey helicopter was kind of phased out. Um, but you're saying no, it's very much still part of the inventory of the at least the Air Force, huh?
It is being phased out. The MH-139 will be taking the Huey's place within the next 5 years. But we are still flying the Huey. I hope to sunset the Huey myself because my granddad was a Vietnam vet. Um, so it's really cool to still fly the Huey and to be in the skies with it. But mostly our mission is to defend the homeland, and that's what the Huey does.
Well, how interesting. Well, thank you, Jordan, for joining us tonight. I do want to get back to you and hear more of your story, but I also want to invite people to remember loved ones or people they just think should be remembered and should be recognized. Let's see, Barb Smith. Barb, you have a note to me here in the chat.
Maybe this will help continue the beginning of our program tonight.
Okay.
So my husband and I were um, participating in many events this weekend, and Friday night we honored the 98 Vietnam veterans of Lorain County, Ohio, that were killed during Vietnam. And when the VA director, Jacob Smith, went to the podium to address the audience, he first started saying, a friend came up to me and said, "Hey, 3-day weekend, this must be like Christmas for you." And he, put him in his place and tried to educate him. And his message to the audience was that how we need to continue educating the public, because they don't realize it's not just picnics and parties and the beach and traveling. It's, honoring our beloved fallen. And uh, so we were another event today, Gold Star Parade, Amherst, Ohio. And when the ROTC instructor from the high school addressed the audience at the end of the parade, beautiful. We had first time I arranged to invite ourselves as Gold Star representatives in the parade. We were able to get our friends who are Gold Star families, and they sat behind us during this presentation. And the flag we held the flag, and then the flag symbolism was described on the Honor and Remember flag. And then when the ROTC instructor addressed everybody, I'd like to read his remarks, if I may. It'll take a couple minutes.
Sure, please do.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today as we gather in solemn remembrance and heartfelt gratitude. Memorial Day is more than a long weekend, more than the unofficial start of summer. It is a sacred day of honor, a time set aside to remember the brave men and women who gave everything so that we might live in freedom and peace. Across generations, across distant battlefields and different times, our service members have stood for the ideals of this nation. From Lexington Green to the mountains of Afghanistan, they fought not for glory, not for recognition, but for something greater, for liberty, for justice, for their comrades in arms, and for the lives of those they would never meet. Their sacrifices built the very foundation of what we enjoy today, the freedoms we often take for granted, our right to speak freely, to worship as we choose, to pursue our dreams. We're paid for in full by those who laid down their lives in defense of our country. We walk in the light of their courage, their selflessness, and their unwavering belief in a better tomorrow. And let us not forget this important truth. Many of those we honor today were young, very young. They were sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, classmates and friends. They had hopes, plans, and dreams for the future, college, careers, families of their own. Yet they answered the call to serve, and when duty demanded the ultimate sacrifice, they gave their lives with courage beyond their years. Their youth reminds us of just how precious and costly freedom really is. It is a powerful reminder that the blessings we enjoy today came at the price of unfulfilled futures and lives cut far too short. On this day, we remember not just the names carved in stone, but the lives behind those names. Gary Ream Jr., David Hall. Their laughter, their dreams, the families who loved them, and the futures they gave up so that ours could continue. Let us not forget that Memorial Day is not only a time to mourn, but also a time to reflect. It is called to live lives worthy of their sacrifice, to be citizens who strive for unity over division, for compassion over indifference, for peace over conflict. So today, as flags wave and flowers are laid, let us pause, not just in silence, but in purpose. Let us teach our children what this day means. Let us say their names. Let us remember the cost. And let us carry forward their legacy with humility, gratitude, and resolve. May we never take for granted the price that has been paid. May we honor the fallen, not just in word, but in how we live each day. Thank you. And as my husband and I were leading the car, transporting the Gold Star families, I held the Honor and Remember flag. My husband held a Memorial Day flag. And I was just shocked with how the sidewalks were just thick, just lined with families and children, that tears were just streaming down my face. And I just yelled out, "Thank you, kids. Thank you, parents. Thank you, parents, for bringing your children." Of course, now most of the kids were waiting for the candy to be thrown at them, but it was just so precious. And the Gold Star families were deeply honored and very appreciative of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barb. Oh my gosh. Barb is so active in the veterans community. That was such a beautiful, brief set of remarks that just encapsulated, I think, the meaning of the day perfectly. Al Smith, you have a suggestion here in the chat about like a moment of silence on Memorial Day for the nation.
Yeah, a little like we do with 9/11, in New York at a certain time, when the first plane hit. It's a moment of silence, whether you're the media stations, the public organizations, whatever. Something where the whole country would be asked to do this. Initially, first year, it may not be taken in by everyone, but over time, if people all jumped in and joined on, maybe this could be a way to remember. Because we all say, at your barbecues and whatever, always remember the veterans who give you the opportunity to have that. And then people go to barbecues and they don't think about veterans and people who died. But the moment of silence nationally would force that. Just a thought.
Just a thought. And Al, I completely agree. I mean, the idea of a moment of silence is perfect because we live in such a noisy world. I mean, as one who gabs all the time, I never am, I'm always talking. There's something so powerful in today's world about silence. It kind of refocuses you, I think, and kind of forces you to stop what you're doing, stop your busyness and really reflect. I think that'd be a beautiful thing. Another beautiful thing, Al, is an article that you passed on to me by Elliot Ackerman and about Memorial Day, an Afghanistan Iraq War vet, and about how the meaning of Memorial Day changed for him after he joined the Marine Corps. He said, for him, it was a 3-day weekend, and then he joins the Marine Corps, and it becomes very different. Wonderful. I'm going to go to Don and then Brad. Hey, Don Nemchek, I know who you're thinking about today.
Well, yes, I am, Todd. Thank you. I'm thinking about the McKeesport 23. But to further Al's point, I believe we have at 3 p.m. Taps Across America. And we had that fellow on several years ago that started that Taps Across America. I do agree with the moment of silence, but there is something formal in place now. And I don't know how well respected it is. I agree with you. We kind of move fast nowadays, but there is something in place, and I certainly agree with Al and yourself about the moment of silence.
Yeah, that Taps Across America is wonderful, and that is promoted by an organization called Bugles Across America. And Tom Beaver was one of the founders. I just saw him today at a local Memorial Day ceremony. He and his brother played the bugle, and we were talking about the problem with Taps Across America is that you don't have that many people play the bugle anymore. There just aren't that many. But at 3 p.m., they play, and they go outside their door and they play, and neighbors think they're out of their minds. But it's for those who understand it, it's a really wonderful and powerful thing. I agree. I think that would be a terrific thing. And I just do want to share, Don, if you wouldn't mind saying a few words about the McKeesport 23. This is your hometown. Oh, I'm going to ask Don to unmute here. You'll notice
Okay.
there's a
Okay.
Michael Nemchek here, same last name as you.
Yes, that's correct. Michael was 18 years old, U.S. Army Private First Class, volunteered to serve in Vietnam, and he also volunteered to go on a very hazardous mission that he did not return from. And we honored him and the other uh, killed in action from McKeesport today, as we have done since 1966. And what's so heartfelt is the ceremony that we have is in a real rough part of town.
Yeah.
Roads bad, the houses are collapsing, and it's an ugly place, but it's a beautiful place because the spirit of the people that are there is overwhelming. We have more people every year, and it was very noteworthy today. Perhaps it was the nice weather, perhaps it was other factors, but we just had a beautiful, beautiful ceremony today. And thank you for the opportunity to mention Private First Class Michael Nemchek and the others from the McKeesport area that were killed in Vietnam. We were just notified that our memorial is the first memorial in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to honor Vietnam veterans. So we do also believe that our memorial is probably maybe one of the first or second in the country. I believe there's a town in New Mexico that probably is pretty close to us, but it's a very inspiring and heartfelt ceremony. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about it briefly today.
Don, I believe the memorial in McKeesport was dedicated on Veterans Day 1965, maybe
No,
1966.
it was 1966. It was when my
Okay.
cousin was killed. He was killed February of '66. The director Sam LaRosa felt
Yeah.
that he had to do something, and you have to remember that was very early in the war. And little did we know that there would be so many more added to that. But it was November of '66, and ironically, when we had the ceremony, the family members line up in the order in which their loved one was killed, and we used the same wreath from 1966.
Oh,
And
boy,
it's just amazing the emotions that go through there.
that is amazing. And I'm just looking at these names and faces. It's like McKeesport, this melting pot of America. You see Jewish names, Eastern European ethnic names, black
Sure.
faces, just
The
it's
East,
a
the
cross
Eastern,
section of McKeesport.
the Eastern European fellow Tibor Sotak. They were he was a Czechoslovakian immigrant, came to the country probably in about 64, 63, 64. I remember him well, real big kid. And he lived in my neighborhood. So we were standing on the corner, always figuring what we are going to do that day. And he would come up the street with his baseball glove and his cap pistol rig and say, I don't know what you boys are going to do today, but I'm ready. So he was quite a kid. And he gave his life in Vietnam, I believe, in 1969.
Oh boy. Thank you, Don, for kind of remembering them and making them, giving them a voice in a sense. Brad Washerbaugh.
Oh, I put in the link, Todd. There is a national moment of remembrance on Memorial Day. It was signed into law in year 2000, and it's at 3 p.m. local time. And I attended as you know, I live in Cary, North Carolina. I attended a veterans event today for Memorial Day. It was very well done. They did have a moment of silence. And of course, the mayor of Cary read a proclamation and he cited all the services except the Marine Corps. He said, I saw him after the service. He said it was generated by AI. I got to talk to one of my staffers about that.
Oh
And I
no.
said, we'll let it slip just one year, but next year there'll be push-ups involved if you leave out the Marine Corps again. But he got a good chuckle out of that. But while you gave me the chance, every Memorial Day I go to my computer and I have a list of Marines that have been lost during my 29 years of service. And I think so often we overlook Marines or service members that have been killed in training accidents. And that was my first exposure in 1977 with a helicopter crash in Mindoro Island in the Philippines. I had two machine gunners, Lance Corporal Lafferty and Fitzpatrick, that were killed in a very tragic CH-53 crash on top of a mountain in Mindoro Island. And so the people we lose, it's a dangerous business that we're in, and there are quite a number of service members we lose each year to training accidents, as you know.
Yeah.
Lance
Yeah. A
Corporal
whole lot.
Lance Corporal Lafferty and Fitzpatrick were two M60 machine gunners in my weapons platoon that were lost on that mountaintop in Mindoro Island, 1977.
Mhm. Thank you, Brad. Susan, how are you?
Hi, did you get the book?
I got the book.
Great. Okay,
The book.
great.
Thank you for sending it.
It was an honor. So I was not in the military. My father was in World War II, a major World War II hero. And first, I just want to say that this is not about Daddy today. It's about my Uncle David. But what I want to say is I get really upset when people go, Happy Memorial Day. I think this is not Happy Memorial Day. This is about mourning and grieving our soldiers. Save happy for Veterans Day. That's Happy Veterans Day because we're celebrating our veterans. But I just get very plugged in when people go, Happy Memorial Day. I just wanted to share that. And then I wanted to just say that my dad had a saying, and Todd knows about this, and Gary Glick knows too. Daddy said, freedom is not free. Freedom was bought and paid for with the blood and deaths of many young men. Nothing is worth dying and fighting for, but freedom is. And every time I say that, I get the goosebumps, but that was my dad's favorite impassioned thing to say. And the reason why I am on today is to honor and remember my mother's brother, my Uncle David, who was in the 101st Airborne. This was my Uncle David. He was, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah. What was his name Friedenberg?
No, Rogers. It was
Oh.
mom's. Yeah, it was David Rogers, my mother's brother. So my grandmother sent 3 boys off to war, which is what they used to do. Okay. She sent 3 boys off. So my Uncle David was a screaming eagle in the 101st Airborne. Okay. He was a lieutenant. And my other Uncle Harold was in the Pacific. And my other Uncle Stanley was a medic in an army hospital in Great Britain somewhere. And my daddy, who was a major World War II hero and on Omaha Beach in the 4th wave off the boats, Daddy was on Omaha Beach on D-Day, June 6th. Meantime, he had no idea that his future brother-in-law was in the 101st. Well, he knew that Uncle David was in the 101st. They went to high school together, Atlantic City High School, but Daddy didn't know Mommy. She was 6 years younger than Dad. But so my uncle was in the 101st Airborne. Daddy's fighting to get off the beach and save lives. And Uncle David is in the 101st Airborne. He jumps into Carentan, France, 2 days after the invasion, okay, to secure the French countryside. And he had 7 men with him. They were surrounded by Nazis. And they saw a Jeep. And my uncle and these guys flipped the Jeep over and got behind the Jeep. And Uncle David put up a white flag to surrender. And these bastards came around with their guns and shot all of them in the head. My uncle was murdered in cold blood when he put up a white flag to surrender. And it was just unbelievable that one guy survived. And my uncle Stanley, who was a medic, this is so bizarre, found the one survivor in an army hospital in England who told the story and told what happened. And, they don't send anybody but one family member, as far as I know now, to go to war. But Nanny sent 3 boys off and got 2 home in a flag. And Nanny was a Gold Star mother in Atlantic City. She was like the head of the Gold Star mothers for a few years. And Mommy said that the family was completely fractured. And a friend of my mom's sent me this hat that she found. And I've had this spiritual, emotional attachment to my uncle because I'm in aviation and he was a jumper. And I just have this thing about my Uncle David. And when he left for war, he gave Mommy his ring and said, little sister, wear this ring around your neck. And when I come home, you'll give it back to me. Well, he never came home, of course. And so about 15 years ago, my mom gave me this ring because I have this spiritual connection to my uncle. And I wear it. I'm not giving you the finger, I promise. I wear it on this finger because it's big. And I just honor him. And I wear the hat. Today I was out in the park, Washington Square Park across the street. There's 3,000 Revolutionary War soldiers buried under that park. And these guys were dressed like the Revolutionary War, and they blew a bugle when you talked about a bugle. And it was really emotional. I'm in the park all the time feeding squirrels, thinking there's 3,000 soldiers underneath me. And there's a big statue of George Washington. And I go there and talk to him and ask him to help us to do something spiritually for the country.
Susan, what is your Uncle David Rogers? What's his middle name?
I don't know what my Uncle David's middle name was.
Okay. I just wanted to look him up. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I could find it somewhere. Maybe one of my aunts. I mean, I'm sure I could find it somewhere. I don't have any parents left, so I can't ask. But David Rogers, and look how handsome he was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And can I just say one little story, another really quick thing?
Yes.
So I was living in Boston and commuting to JFK to fly my trips with this funky airline I was flying for called Capital Air. And I had this spiritual connection to my uncle, and I was sound asleep. And I woke up in the middle of the night. And honest to God, Uncle David was in his uniform hovering over my bed. He was hovering over my bed. And he said to me, his lips weren't moving, but he was communicating. And he said to me, I love you. I'm always with you. And if anything ever happens, I will protect you. You will always be safe because I'm with you. And then he just disappeared. And then the next day I'm on the tram going to Logan Airport to go up to Kennedy to fly my trip to Germany on a DC-8 stretch, 252 passengers. And on the tram, this woman out of nowhere just said, death walks to the left of you. And I was like, what? And then she just disappeared. I was like, oh my God. And then I get to Kennedy, we're taxiing, there's 7 flight attendants, 3 pilots up in the cockpit. All of a sudden we had an intense right engine, a starboard fire. The airplane, their whole right side was on fire. Passengers are self-evacuating. It was just bizarre. But you just go, you guys know, you just go into action and you do what you're trained to do. So we're evacuating this airplane, and the crew is the last to go down the chute. I go down the chute, and something made me turn around. And Kurt Stankus, this flight attendant, screaming, come on, Susan, come on. I turned around. I swear to God, my uncle was hovering over the emergency exit door. And I'll just never get over it. I'll never forget that. He was with me. And just God bless all of you that served, and just God bless all of you, and Gold Star mothers and Gold Star families. My grandmother was a mess for her whole life. Anyway, just God bless all of you. I just wanted to share about my Uncle David.
Thank you very much. And wouldn't you know, Barb Smith may have found him. David Buck Rogers, maybe that was him. We'll
From
be
Atlantic City. From Atlantic City.
okay. He was from Atlantic City. That really helps. Okay, thank you. And we will look into that. Thank you very much, Susan. I want Justin Thomas. You better unmute yourself at some point because I would love to have you. Hey, Justin,
Hey,
how are you?
good, Todd. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I just have a moment of time. I have a 7 and a 5 year old. Well, 6 and 4. In a month, I'll be 7 and 5. So
Oh, God bless you. You have a young family. I know you're super busy with work and young family and
yeah,
other things. So
yeah,
I'm really grateful that you joined us, and especially this day, Memorial Day. Can you tell us who
yeah.
you think about?
Eric Hall and Nick Tomko, they were with the 307th MP company with me in Iraq, and we were there in 2003 for Operation Iraqi Freedom. So
When did you arrive in Iraq in 2003?
uh, the day George Bush said mission accomplished,
That day.
that day, yeah.
And what was
So
it like? I mean, what was it
I,
like to be in the
I mean,
307th?
to be there and as a reserve unit in the history of the reserves at that time was kind of more peacetime activations, but just to be in country, I mean, it's surreal. I mean, and to think when you land and you hear mission accomplished, you're like, well, I guess we're just jumping right back on that plane, and it definitely was not that. I
It
mean,
was
we were in
not.
Kuwait at that point, making our way up, but yeah, it was something. We were after the main invasion, so I can't remember. It was like May 1st. Can't remember the date, but yeah, it was in May.
I'm putting up a picture of Eric Hall.
Yeah,
He's 23 years old from Uniontown. His military vehicle returning from the airport when his vehicle hit an improvised explosive device in Baghdad. Um, he's holding up, oh boy,
yeah,
he had a son and daughter
right.
and wife. And here he is, a picture of him holding up a sign. I miss you guys. Love you lots, Dada.
Yeah,
Oh my. This is when IEDs were really not, you guys were under armored. I mean, I remember these days. The IEDs, we didn't really have a name for them. They were mines. They were road mines, we called them, right?
right.
But they were new.
They were new. Yeah, we weren't prepared for that.
How did you up armor your vehicles?
Um, so yeah, we used sandbags on the floor, thinking that it was coming from underneath. We took Vietnam. We shipped with Vietnam era flak jackets, but when we got there, we ended up with the modern body armor with SAPI plates that actually has straight on ballistic protection. But so we took the old Vietnam era flak jackets and fixed them to the doors with whatever ingenuity we came up with, zip ties and ropes and uh, and then eventually we got fancy and we found Iraqis who could weld
Yeah.
because we were out in the public every day and we would commission them, I guess, and then we'd have them attach metal plates to our vehicles to the point where they were even getting fancy enough to make like we call them teacups, the armor around the gunner and the turret.
Yeah.
They were capable of doing that, but it was a little janky. But yeah, we were pretty much coming up with a good old GI ingenuity, I guess.
Yeah. Solving the problems on the fly,
Yep.
on the
Yeah.
job. Here's a picture of Nicholas Allen Tomko.
Yes.
Can you tell us about him?
Yeah, he was a good guy. He's a go-getter. Um, yeah, he was a father as well. A young boy, I believe Ethan. Um, but yeah, we were working. So we had to support another unit as Camp Dogwood had a main supply route, and they needed more support on that route to sweep for IEDs. So in that era, sweeping for IEDs was essentially driving up and down the road and seeing if anything looked different. Um, So they put us in officially, actual up armored Humvees for this. And he was a different platoon. My platoon didn't go down there. We stayed around Baghdad. And yeah, so they were doing such a good job of sweeping out the IEDs that they were coming back at night. And instead of running IEDs, they ran an ambush. And I mean, it's sad. Like the one unarmored part of his body is what took a bullet. It's under his armpit because he was in a turret on the machine gun, and your arms up like a wing, and that's the exposed part. So yeah, he didn't.
Justin, I imagine that you think of Eric and Nick a lot, and not just
Yes,
on Memorial Day. You
correct.
may think about them every day. But is Memorial Day is it hard for you? Is it different?
Um, it's hard. It goes and I've heard through like life and podcasts and listening to different people. It's I have the gift of life, right? I'm
Yeah.
lucky, and make the best of it, and is what we assume they would want, right? You have this gift, do it, and I don't know. It's been at least 10 years. I started going camping on Memorial Day weekend with my wife, and then now I go with my family every year. We camped at Cruiser State Park, and just got back this afternoon, and it's always been a tradition just because I think I needed to separate
Yeah.
to get away from the happy Memorial Day and
Yes.
be with who I love and not get caught up in the fanfare because like you said, a lot of us it was just 3-day weekend, and then you come back from something like that and you realize the magnitude of it. And I typically go up to New Kensington to visit the memorial. I didn't want to drag everybody there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I try to bring my kids into it. For a weekend of camping, you got to play. And then
Yeah.
that's why I came here tonight. I was like, this is a way to honor them. I get to speak about them. I get to tell people about them. And they were great men, and great fathers, and love their children. And it's a powerful day. It's tough. Yeah, there's the memorial. So yeah, that was
Justin, you were a student of mine at Penn State Beaver. You took a
correct.
course in the Vietnam War. You had just gotten back
Yeah.
from Iraq. I had no idea, of course, what you experienced. Um, I've known you for a long time,
Yep.
and I'm just very grateful that you were sharing this with us.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to be here. And I mean, what you've done for veterans, Todd, is special. I mean, it means a lot.
All right. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Todd.
Boy, Justin just brings it home that there's something a little off about Memorial Day. And here's what it is. I think it's just this contradiction in the day. On the one hand, the somber, sober, serious, deep nature of the day. And then on the other hand, it's a great day for a picnic and for swimming and for, having fun. And it's not like I don't believe that you need to, make it a completely somber day entirely. But boy, some kind of reflection or recognition that it's a hard day for a lot of Gold Star families, a lot of veterans. I'm going to have two members of Gold Star families say a word or two. Nancy Smoyer, how are you?
I'm okay, sort of.
You, yeah, you put in the chat, your brother was killed in Vietnam, Bill Smoyer, and you said, I think of him every day. So in a sense, nothing new about Memorial Day, but is it different still? Is it?
Well, it's different in that I hear from people, a few people, his friends, and a fellow Marine But other than that, it's not. I was going to read something, if it's okay with you, that I wrote years ago about.
Yeah, please do. And I'll just say this is your brother, who is known as Billy Smoyer, graduate of Dartmouth, hockey player from New Jersey, and he was killed in Quang Province, July 28th, 1968.
Right. So I wrote this 20, 30 years ago, whatever, to an email group of Vietnam veterans. It was a listserv, and so there was a lot of conversation, like back and forth. So this is what I said. I can't get through it, I'm sure. I don't like to tell people that my brother was killed in Vietnam, and I rarely do. People that knew him understand the magnitude of the loss, so I don't have to tell them. I don't like to tell the general public, even friends, because they just don't understand Vietnam. And I need to add, I was a donut dolly in Vietnam, so they don't understand. I can see them thinking, "Oh, now I understand why Nancy's so hung up on Vietnam," as if his death explains it all away. I see my experiences and his as almost completely separate and very different. I had gone and come back before he went over. Mine was positive in many ways. His was all negative. I sometimes tell veterans, usually for a specific reason, as it pertains to a conversation or situation, but I don't like to tell them because it only adds to their already too heavy burden. You might think talking to other families, particularly siblings, would be the easiest, when in fact it's the hardest. It's the hardest not because I empathize so much with them, but rather so little. My feelings shut down with siblings, especially sisters. But the real reason I don't tell people is because no matter how close they are to me or my family or to Billy, no matter how deeply they believe or know what a wonderful person he was, no matter how hard they try or want to empathize, they can't understand the enormity of the loss. Now, I know intellectually this isn't always true, but that's how it feels. And at the end, I said, so I'm taking this step of telling you that, yes, my younger brother Billy was killed in Vietnam, and he was a wonderful person, and I miss him. I got through it.
You did get through it. I think
I
when I
don't
was,
know
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say something stupid.
I don't know if other people, family members, or veterans for that matter, can relate to that, not wanting to talk about it because people don't get it.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, Nancy, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
nobody
but
feels.
so many people, family members, are very open about talking about their relative and what he was like and all that. I just can't.
Why, and why is that? I mean, I know that you read why that is, and you seem to say that nobody could understand the enormity of the loss. Are you
Yeah, and
saying,
I said I know it's not true, but it's the way it feels.
but it is true.
And well,
It is true. I mean, it's the loss that you suffered is beyond words. So to even put it into words is almost diminishing it.
yeah.
Like, oh, let's talk about Billy Smoyer and then we'll move on to what's for dinner. It's you can't, it just, there's no way to talk about it unless you never stop talking about it.
Well, and it's strange too when you're talking again. I'm sure others have felt this. You may be talking to somebody that knew him really well, really cared for him. But what do you say after you say, I miss him, he was great? What I like, what I think is really neat is when people tell me stories about him,
Yeah.
because that adds to
Yeah.
the memory bank, which stopped at age 22,
Which stopped it. So he was 22.
Right.
How old were you?
I was 25.
Oh, so he was a younger brother.
Yeah.
What was he like?
He was outgoing. He lit up the room.
He lit up the room.
Yeah.
And what were you like in comparison?
Oh, well, in Vietnam, you could have said that. You could say all of us donut bellies.
Yeah.
All of us lit up the room, but it's not my personality typically.
So you're more of an introvert, but you're able to become an extrovert to be a donut dolly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And did you worry when he went to Vietnam?
I told him two things. I said, listen to your sergeant. He was a lieutenant. Listen to your sergeant and don't try to be a hero. And yeah, I worried, but he was killed 3 weeks after he got there. So didn't worry very long.
How did your parents grieve and respond to it? Did they ever, did they heal?
Well, you don't, you know, I mean, obviously life goes on. They went on. I mean, I heard a story when I was volunteering at the wall about a family was there, their mother and the brothers of a man that was on the wall, and they said something about she doesn't talk. And I said, referring to the mother, I said, you mean she doesn't talk about him? And they said, no, she doesn't talk. She doesn't talk.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a really extreme response, but like all of us, you sort of you go on, you just and you live with it.
Yeah. You live with it. Two words that I think are so that can be used in a shallow way are closure and healing because so wounds never really heal, but you just kind of learn to live with the pain, incorporate the pain into your
Closure is
daily
kind
life.
of a dirty word.
And closure really is the more shallow word. I agree.
Yeah.
Because that's like
Yeah. It's
closing the
like
door.
dismissing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dismissing
Yeah.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Nancy, thank you very much.
Thanks for letting me talk.
Becky Nyron, if you are willing and able to talk about Nate.
Well, I kind of came prepared tonight, Todd, even though I came a little late. I apologize for that. But first, before I get into Nate, can I share? I don't know that I've shared this with you. It's the Gold Star Games of Western Pennsylvania are football games put on by local high schools during the football season that the group that I'm involved, another group I'm involved with called Legacies Alive, which I'm representing tonight. But for the last 3 years, this young man, Brock Cornell, has represented Nate in the Western Pennsylvania Gold Star Games, and what those are is standouts from local high school give up their name during a game every year, and they let the fallen hero's name be said in lieu of their name, and Brock was a standout at West Allegheny. And he wrote this essay as his college admissions essay. And he was recently accepted into the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this, but I'll try. So, for the past 3 years, the Gold Star Game has been a defining moment in my life, shaping my perspective on sacrifice, honor, and gratitude. This annual football event holds a special place in my heart as it allows me to pay tribute to a fallen hero, Nathaniel Nyron, who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Now, this is like the 10th time I've read this, and it never gets any easier, but what began as a simple act of remembrance has blossomed into a profound connection with Nate's wife, Becky, and a deep sense of purpose. As the Gold Star Game, instead of hearing my name announced over the loudspeaker, it's Nate's name that resonates through the stadium whenever I make a play. Touchdown by number 7, Nathaniel Nyron, echoes through the crowd. a poignant reminder of the heroism and sacrifice that Nate embodied. Initially, I did not fully grasp the significance of this gesture, but that changed when I had the privilege of meeting Nate's wife. Meeting Becky was a transformative experience that forever changed my perspective. She welcomed me with open arms, expressing her gratitude for honoring her late husband. Through our interactions, she shared stories of Nate's bravery, his love for his country, and his unwavering commitment to service. In her, I found strength, resilience, and a deep sense of connection that transcended words. As the years passed, Nate's wife became like family to me, attending each Gold Star game and offering unwavering support and encouragement. Our bond grew stronger with each passing year, fueled by a shared commitment to honoring Nate's legacy and cherishing his memory. The selfless act of honoring Nate through the Gold Star game has not only brought solace to his family, but has also enriched my life in ways I never imagined. The impact of the Gold Star game and Nate's legacy on me has been profound. It has instilled in me a deep sense of gratitude for the sacrifices made by our servicemen and women, a renewed appreciation for the importance of honoring our heroes, and a profound understanding of power and remembrance. Nate's spirit has served as a guiding light, inspired me to give my all on the football field and in all aspects of my life. The Gold Star game has become more than just a football game. It's a testament to the enduring power of remembrance, honor, and gratitude. As I take the field every year, I do so with a heart full of gratitude, a mind focusing on honoring Nate's memory, and a spirit uplifted by the love and support of his wife. The Gold Star game has not only enriched my life, but has also reaffirmed my commitment to honoring the heroes who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. So this all started through Legacies Alive, probably about 8 years ago, when they decided that teams from Western Pennsylvania and the WPIAL games they choose various standouts from each team that they know will be able to honor a hero with their name. And I had the pleasure of having Brock represent Nate for 3 years in a row. And this his senior year, unfortunately, he was injured, so he didn't get to play. But that was his essay for entrance to the University of Pennsylvania. And I'll have the pleasure next weekend of attending his graduation party. And when in the picture, if I zoom in, he's wearing a bracelet. Can you see it? This silver bracelet that I gave him that was offered by Legacies. And he's a quiet kid, so it's befitting because Nate was a pretty quiet guy, and he reminds me a lot of him. So I just wanted to share that, and I am going to get that to you, Todd, to hopefully print in an upcoming issue sometime in the future. So, or just share it on the website.
Wow, what a wonderful,
So,
wonderful tribute.
what else do you want to know?
Um, I've several thoughts, but I do. You said Nate was quiet.
He was just a very unassuming individual. And when he had to go to combat, I knew it wasn't his personality, which, when you're doing your job, you just, especially in the military, as many of you know, you just do what you're told. And he went and hopefully was going to serve his year and do what he was told and then get home. And about 8 weeks before they came home, got the knock on the door.
Oh, you got a knock on the door.
Well, kind of. His ex-wife found it was 3 days after Christmas, so I wasn't home. And they had spent about 36 hours trying to locate me, and they weren't able to. So his ex-wife called me and said, "Where are you?" And every time I talked to her on the phone, I tried to sound upbeat, and she just said Nathaniel was killed. And the reason she found out is because Nate had a 7-year-old daughter. Well, she was 8 at the time, and so she was listed on his next of kin.
Right.
And so they knew before I did and before his father did because his father was out of town being so close to Christmas. So I was with my mom, and when we got to my mom's house about a half an hour after Courtney called me, there was a chaplain and a major um, waiting at her doorstep. And they, it's amazing what the military can find out, but they find you.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Is Memorial Day especially fulfilling or especially difficult?
Um, well, it's kind of funny because my mom and it was a little different this year because I was out of town at a wedding, so I didn't get to participate in a lot of the various things. There were no parades, no cemetery memorializations. I did have the chance to go to the Wall That Heals on Thursday while they were setting up before I went out of town, so I was able to at least do something, but there was a discussion this morning about saying Happy Memorial Day, and we've talked about this. Um, and it wasn't 5 minutes after we had the discussion that my cousin, one of whom I saw at the wedding yesterday, for which I was out of town, she said, Becky, I'm sorry I forgot to tell you this yesterday, but I'm thinking of you and Happy Memorial Day. Which 21 years ago, I said Happy Memorial Day.
Oh
It's like,
yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know what a Gold Star family was before Nate was killed. Um, and I can't read Abby's text and say, well, you don't say Happy Memorial Day because I grew up saying Happy Memorial Day, but
Well, and she means well.
exactly. The exact words that I texted her back, I said, thanks, Ab, that means more than you know. So you'd rather hear Happy Memorial Day than to not have people reach out at all.
Right. Right. Even though it's drawing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something tough. And I think hopefully I'll put it right. That that essay that you just read by a young man kind of starting out in life is in many ways the epitome of Memorial Day. He, by remembering and honoring, he's drawing inspiration, like breath to go on and propel him through life. It is like life is generated through this really difficult process of grief and mourning and remembering and honoring. It's a hard process, but it's one that can end in that beauty of the flower blossoming, I think that's what makes it such a magical and wonderful holiday. But
Well, and in addition to that, Todd, it's not only it was Brock, but the six other individuals that were represented on his team for each game. And then there was a point 3 years ago that there were 20 teams represented through the Gold Star games. And so you magnify that 20 teams times six players representing individuals, but then the 30 young people on that team in addition to the ones that are being represented. And I know that Brock has done an excellent job at expressing to his teammates how big of a deal this
yeah,
is.
yeah.
And it's educating young people on what Gold Star families are. And I mean, I've even talked to young military people that don't know what Gold Star family members are.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely.
And it's just education. And I've told you this before. I've had people say that, I'll tell someone I'm a Gold Star family member, and they're like, "Oh, that's great," Well, I'm like, "Well, no, this is what it means."
Right.
And some like one of my friends a couple weeks ago and I were talking that they're Gold Star members at Costco, and and he says he feels guilty going into Costco as a Gold Star member because it has a different connotation now to him because he knows me.
Yeah.
So,
Isn't that interesting?
yeah.
Boy, oh boy. Yeah, I remember a long time ago when we first started Veterans Breakfast Club, I was admiring some kind of ribbon that a uniformed soldier had. And I said like, wow, that's not a nice piece of hardware or something like that. And he said like, you don't want it. You don't want it because if you get this, which was a silver star, you
Oh,
had to have experienced something pretty bad.
right.
And that was a sobering moment for me. Thank you, Becky.
Thanks, Todd. Anytime.
Susan Key, thank you for joining us. You spent your much of your life honoring and remembering Gold Star families every day, especially Gold Star families of those who died in Korea in the Korean War. And you shared a couple things with me, and I thought I would pass them on and have you talk about them. There's one person in particular you wanted to remember today, and I love this because he's not somebody any of us here in the Zoom room are related to. His name was John T. Griffin, and he was about
Yes,
187th Airborne.
yes, I have his bracelet that his brother gave me. Uh, it's so hard for me to put into words how I feel towards the Gold Star families, especially Nancy here and Becky, who shared of their brother and husband who was killed. This is a very personal thing to me because I am the other side of your sacrifice. I am the other side of American sacrifice because I am alive and free because of an American hero who came to my country and saved my parents during the war. Every day, that is a very uh, stark reality to me that Americans had to die for me to live in freedom. So I just want to extend to you, especially Nancy and Becky, just my deepest sorrow for your loss. And I feel it a responsibility as a person who had been saved by American sacrifice to be a face to especially Gold Star families, to let you know that there is an outcome of someone having been saved, someone having been fought for as a result of American sacrifice. And in Korea, 36,000 Americans gave their lives to save us. And to me, that's not a number anymore, especially after meeting so many Gold Star families. But, I've met over the years hundreds of Gold Star families, and they're the most difficult ones for me to speak to, because how can I stand before them when their loved ones are not here? This is your country. But here I am, living in this country as a result of an American hero who went to my birth country to save my parents. And so I feel that my responsibility is to bridge the gap of pain for the families who sent off their loved one to a far off land. And for me, now that I live here in America, I have a responsibility, I feel, to really console and comfort the families who don't have a face of their loved one's sacrifice. Who did they fight for? Who did they save? So I feel it a great privilege to represent to your audience, Todd, all the people that Americans have ever gone to fight for. I want to represent those people who have been saved by American sacrifice, whether it was in Europe, Vietnam, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan. There is a people who have been grateful for American courage to come and fight for them. Whatever the outcome of the war, doesn't matter. The fact that they had courage to fight for another's freedom is greatness. So I just wanted to console Nancy and Becky and just really thank you for honoring your loved ones by being so real with your pain. When I first met families, it was really difficult for me to speak to them. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to a family who's lost a loved one so that you can live? So for me, it's a very personal and a very direct relationship I have to their sacrifice. I am here because they sacrificed someone in their family. So I've met over the years many families of killed, but especially missing in action, because Defense POW MI Accounting Agency holds an annual conference in Washington, D.C. for Vietnam War MIAs and Korean War MIAs. I think Vietnam one is always in June, Korean War is August. After I learned about MIAs, I didn't even know what MIAs were. These are missing in action. There's still 7,400 missing from Korean War. I decided I need to go, simply for the fact that these families needed to see a Korean face, someone who is alive and free because of what they have given up. I needed to show them a reason, at least one reason, for why their loved ones died. And there are millions of reasons why our Korean War missing have given their lives. Millions of Koreans live in freedom today as a result of what they sacrificed for us. So it is then that I started a journey of just wanting to learn who these heroes were. I don't want to just know names listed on a wall. I want to know who they were, what they meant to the families, and how the families have coped with the lifelong loss and still not having closure. They don't have their loved ones home to bury even. So it is an unspeakable and indescribable sacrifice that they have made. So it has become really close to my heart to really speak specifically to families of fallen, to let you know the other side of your loved one's sacrifice and your sacrifice. Families have made lifelong sacrifices. So today I spoke at a Memorial Day ceremony in Carefree. And because I know so many stories, I had to narrow down to one, a very compelling story I wanted to share. So this is the bracelet of Corporal John T. Griffin. He was a paratrooper with 187th Airborne Rakasans. And he was dropped behind enemy lines on March 23rd, 1951. And so just 2 days later, as he was battling the communists, he and 9 other paratroopers were killed. The only reason I found out the story of this hero was because I met his brother. And when I met his brother, I found out that he was a Vietnam War veteran. He had grown up. He himself became a paratrooper. He was highly decorated, I think either a bronze or a silver star as a paratrooper in Vietnam. And when I found his story, of course, I'm usually I can speak pretty well, but when I'm in front of a Gold Star family, I'm just a hot mess because I can't express everything I feel in terms of my sorrow for them. And I got to know Mr. Griffin, and I told him of an opportunity where Korean government was inviting Gold Star families to Korea to honor their loved one's sacrifice. So I told Mr. Griffin, would you like to go? And he said, yes, I would. And he said, can I make a request? Can I go to the hill where my brother was killed? Mm. And I said, why would you want to do that? Isn't that going to be too painful for you? And he said, I just want to see what my brother last saw before he died. And so I prayed a lot because I don't have a clue as to how to find a specific place in Korea. I didn't grow up there. And so I prayed and I realized, oh my gosh, I know a retired colonel from the US Army who is a DMZ expert. So I asked him to do a Google map overlay of old Korean War map and figure out where the hill was. So in April 2017, Mr. Griffin, Peter Griffin, and I stood on that hill. And I can't tell you what we both felt because there's no words to match what we felt. It is the most unforgettable experience I will ever have, the most humbling. And as I stood on that hill with Mr. Griffin, I could literally feel the blood rushing under my feet of those 9 paratroopers that died that day. And so for me, American sacrifice made with blood became so real. Not just a story you read about, but something you feel. And that is my birth country of Korea, that these heroes died for. So for me, it is so important to tell these heroes' stories and to keep their legacy alive. And just like Becky was just sharing about that young student, remembering her husband, that's what I feel I need to do for them. What can I do other than keep remembering and give honor to these heroes and to let them know that a Korean person who is alive as a result of their sacrifice remembers them and recognizes their sacrifice. I realize now that that is the greatest gift I can give back to these heroes and families, is to preserve their stories and legacies. So I've gone on multiple trips to Korea with veterans and Gold Star families, and they'll tell me that stepping foot in Korea was transformative for them, especially for Gold Star families, because Korea was a far-off land where their loved ones died and still may be missing. But just to step foot in the soil of Korea made them feel more closely connected to their loved one and where they still may be. So I really consider it a huge honor and really God's blessing to me, for me to have come to know so many Gold Star families, because it is a tremendous honor. People talk about heroes, athletes, politicians, whatever. To me, these are the greatest heroes who have given their life for another's freedom. So I really appreciate this forum, Todd, that you have given to the Gold Star families, to even, I think, was it Justin that spoke about his friends he lost. So I think this is such an important way to remember and honor them. And that's what Memorial Day is for. But like I say to a lot of people when I speak at events, every day is Memorial Day for me, because every day I know I'm alive because these heroes died to save us.
Yeah.
So I just really appreciate your allowing me this opportunity to speak, and also give my condolences to the Gold Star families. I carry these families' stories in my heart, and I will always honor them.
Thank you, Susan. And I agree. I think you're just simply being and speaking and thanking veterans means so much, because if they hadn't sacrificed and the families hadn't had to make that sacrifice, you wouldn't be living, or certainly you wouldn't be living the life you're living now.
And and I think this is a message not only for Gold Star families, but for veterans as well. Wherever Americans have gone to fight, whether you came home or whether you did not, there is a people who were grateful to see somebody fight for them. So I want our veterans and our Gold Star families to feel a level of pride in having done something so selfless as to fight for another's freedom. And I feel that I need to remind Americans of how great that is, how noble that is, because you just do it automatically. Americans just go to fight for others people's freedom, against oppression, against tyranny. Just automatically, it's in your genes. But I tell you, I think America is one of the only countries in the world who have done it over and over. And as evidenced by even Becky's story, that sacrifice continues to be made today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you for joining us from Arizona, especially to highlight Korean War, those lost in the Korean War. Bob Flage, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. My thoughts about Memorial Day, it's a little bit harder. Just about every day or not every day, but almost every day is a Memorial Day for me, for the 9 people that I know that were close to me that were lost in Vietnam. The first 2 of them were classmates. The first one we lost him. He was a U.S. Marine. We lost him in '66 before I got over there. But every one of the other 8 were all in '68. It was a busy year. The 9th Division lost more people in 1968 than any other year. And I don't know. I got back from Australia the very end of January, just in time to meet a new platoon leader that we got, and we were sent out on a mission to look for a battalion that had disrupted Saigon that got away. And that platoon leader was with us 2 weeks and got killed. That was on the like it was the 20, I don't know, wasn't it? It was the March 20th. That one, no, it was February 20th. But anyway, the 26th, we ended up finding that battalion by accident. We were landed in an LZ, and the 26th, I lost my first man in assault. And then that night they came back. The 3rd platoon lost 3 men. And then the 3rd of March, which was just the next day, I lost another man. Friendly fire killed him. And then another classmate was killed in April. And then another classmate, wasn't a classmate, but he went to the same high school in May. So this combined group really hits hard at one time. It's, the other ones, I remember them on the wall, put notes to them. birthdays, there's certain different days that pop up that, that I know of them. I've tried to honor, I have honored all of these guys that I've purposely entered them in the National Hall of Purple Heart. They keep changing their requirements, so I don't even know if I can do it anymore. But Jacksonville does have the largest uh, memorial wall outside of DC, and I've entered some of those people that that I've come across that I can find, especially a military uh, uh, the military headstone that has Purple Heart on it. They were taking that at one point, but almost I think now you have to have orders or whatever to for the Purple Heart to get them in there. Anyway, that's But like I said, one day all of these guys hit once.
Yeah.
Not you know, I guess it's a good way to remember them all at one time, but it hurts.
Oh, I can't imagine. I can't imagine, Bob. And you just echoed something, an early lesson I learned again with the Veterans Breakfast Club in 2009. Joe Capone, we were at a breakfast. Joe Capone was a World War II veteran. I very casually said to Joe in May at a breakfast I was setting up, Joe, we're going to talk about Memorial Day. Who do you remember on Memorial Day? And he said, well, I think of the 4 guys in my squad who didn't come home, but I think of them every day. And that's when it hit me. Oh my gosh. For Bob Flage, for Joe Capone, Memorial Day is every day. The rest
Yeah,
of us, we're asked one day a year,
yeah,
part of one
Shirley
day a year.
Reynolds and Bob Jenks, they're with me every day,
They're with you every
every
day.
day.
Yeah.
Our platoon leader, I really didn't get to know him. With us 2 weeks, and Ronald Wood, brand new butter bar, just got over to us, and he didn't last long.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes,
Thank you for
sir.
joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
Al,
Yeah, one thing that really struck home with all this conversation tonight for me is, we honor and recognize those who have fallen. And this sounds cold, but they're fallen, their hurt is over. But all the families that their hurt and their pain goes on year after year after year. And we tend to forget all those they left behind. And I think we should think about them too. When I went over to Vietnam, I was put together with like 90 infantry platoon leaders in Fort Lewis. And we were there for 30 days before we went over. And I got to know this one lieutenant and his wife. They were newly married. So really got to know them well. And 6 months after we went over, he was killed. And to this day, I keep thinking about his wife because now I'm sure she moved on and remarried, but that pain, newly married, and she lost her husband. I can't imagine. It's just we got to think of those we left behind too.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I just saw, I'm glancing here at the chat, and I see somebody, I think it was Gary Glick and maybe Greg Yost talking about the parades and how it kind of bothers them. Parades often I think Gary said there were no veterans in the Memorial Day parade. I would just imagine if you're going to have a parade, maybe having a Gold Star families, lead it somehow, something, some kind of recognition. Thank you very much, Al. Again, please raise your hand if you want to say something. Okay, Barb. I want to say hi to Pedro. Okay, hold on, Barb. We're gonna have. I think I remember you, Pedro. I haven't seen you in a while. Do I have your name right?
That's right. Call
That's
me
right.
Pete now.
Pete.
Americanized.
Pete. Very good. Very good. How are you, Pete?
Okay, long time no see. I just wanna tell you about my dad. Of course, he's out there. He's a World War II guy. Can you say it?
Yes, I can. What was his name?
Pedro Sarmiento.
Okay.
Yeah, he's at. I honor him practically every time because I live in not too far from Arlington. I'm on the other side of the river. So the reason I said this is without my dad coming over to the United States, I won't be here.
And he came from the Philippines.
Exactly. And he decided to bring us kids. We're about five of us then, and I'm the oldest. I'll be 92.
Oh my gosh.
July. I served myself, and I was going to get drafted in the army, but I joined the Air Force instead. I was born in the army. In fact, I was born in the U.S. Army Hospital in Manila with three of us kids. One of my sister, younger than I am, is born the same day as Arthur MacArthur was born. In fact, I used to correspond with Miss MacArthur when she's still alive. So I got a lot of not only historical thing about the military history, but not only my dad's unit, but knowing a lot of the Filipinos that came over here, the Philippine Scout. It's not many of them, not like the Navy guys, the Filipino who joined the Navy because majority want to be cooks.
Yes. Was your dad a POW?
Yeah, he was a POW, and in fact, he just got that when they passed that, yeah, the medal, POW medal that they gave him posthumously. Anyway, that's so every day is practically Memorial Day for me because it's just to remind me about the you know, sacrifice of some of these guys who fought in Bataan and Corregidor.
So he fought in Bataan and Corregidor. Here he is, captain in the United States Army, World War II, Korea, served in Korea also.
Well, he was in a Korean time period. In
Okay.
fact, we arrived in the United States. The Korean War was 2 months old, and he was going to be going to Korea because he was in the same outfit as the 11 Airborne because he was going to be stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and that's where we wound up when we arrived in the country. And one of my brothers was born in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. So it's an experience itself. I can tell you about military history, but not only me being the oldest, so I can tell you about war stories, but I never think about it. But my granddaughter said, "Why don't you write your own bio because you survived the Japanese occupation and you came to America, got married, and here I am now." So, but the life in America is, it's really amazing. I've been all over the world too myself, and there's nothing in America that any other country in the world, and the Americans just don't realize it. But like you said, not many of them don't know their history pretty well, and Memorial Day is another like a picnic for them. It's a sacrifice of paying respect for the people who passed away and fought for their country. So I sacrificed myself just serving the United States Air Force, but instead I go to Korea. I was going to go to Korea, but they sent me to Germany instead. So I
Pete,
lucked out.
what a story, Pete. I agree that you should write your story, or at least have us maybe interview you, so we
Okay.
can get your story recorded. And part of your story, I think, is your parents' story. Your father, a survivor of the Bataan Death March. He was a Philippine scout, right? Came to the U.S. I think it's quite a remarkable and wonderful story. I hope you will share it with us sometime.
Yeah, we'll do. Take care of
Okay.
yourself.
All right, Pete. And you get I know you get our emails, and I have your email, so I'm going to harass you about this, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to go to Barb and then Chris Parolo.
Thank you. Two quick messages. First, these stories are so compelling, so heartfelt. Susan, Becky's, everybody's. Thank you so much. And I would like to invite all of you, all my pixelated friends, Gold Star families out there watching tonight, to join my husband and I December 7th at the Gold Star dinner in Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Virginia, the Honor and Remember flag banquet, Gold Star Family Banquet. And Susan, you can fly up there and just enjoy it. Honor, remember, George Lutz started the flag. You can go to the organization and read what the elements of the flag are. He noticed the Gold Star families didn't have any representation, so he created this flag in honor of his beloved George Jr. And so we'd love to see you at the banquet. And I'm sure people might love to hear your story, Susan, and how much you appreciate what the fallen and veterans have done for you. One more thing. 2 years ago, in February, I watched a film suggested by our Dutch friend Nick in a little village of Ospel, Netherlands. It's entitled Some Will Never Return. You can watch it on Amazon Prime. Some Will Never Return. When I watched that film, I said, I have to be there. I want to meet those children. I want to go to their classroom. And May, I was in their classroom. They have a classroom just a couple miles outside of the Netherlands, Margraten American Cemetery. I was speaking to them. Thank God they know English. I spoke with them for an hour and a half on a 37 slide presentation, thanking them for taking care, adopting our boys' graves at Margraten. Dutch people and Belgian people, Europeans love our American warriors, our war dead. They adopt the graves. They keep the single grave in perpetuity. When somebody dies, it stays in the family. We have friends like that. We've been to the cemetery 3 times in 1 year. It's a fabulous place. So please know that our boys are being loved and cared for in those American cemeteries overseas. Some will never return. One more film along that line, Akkers van Margraten. AKKERS means like acres. And you can watch the building of that cemetery where over 8,200 of our boys are buried. It's phenomenal. So Some Will Never Return and Akkers van Margraten. Thank you all so much for letting me speak tonight. Thank you. I've enjoyed this so tremendously.
Thank you. Thank you, Barb. Yeah, Margraten American Cemetery. There's nothing like it. Locals tend the graves. Nobody told them to do it. They just started to do it after World War II, and they continue to do it. Chris Parolo.
Todd, we're almost out of time here. Let me bring it full circle back to where we started, sir. As veterans, you're worried about are people getting away from remembering or honoring this holiday. 100% of the people will never really embrace it. We have such a diverse country, but we as veterans have a duty to keep the consciousness alive. And that's what we do whenever we participate in any event on Memorial Day, leading up to Memorial Day. But it's interesting. You should contemplate that question when this organization and your leadership is doing tremendous work in keeping the memory of these heroes alive through what you do. So it's going to depend on every community, every patriot, every veteran, every person like yourself, every historian, every person organizing people to remember. And as long as we do that work as best as we can, people will remember, people will respond, people will appreciate. That's all.
Amazing, Chris. Thank you so much. What wonderful words. Joe Griffiths.
You know, what a way to end a day like today, hearing all these remarkable stories that Todd, that you and Sean and Susan and Chris and everybody bring about. Couple fast notes. Pedro, if you notice the tombstone and you said it, there's an untold story that needs to be told that a lot of our World War II veterans survived World War II and got drafted into Korea and died in Korea. If that's not heroism, I don't know what is. I wrote an article for our friend Doug Satterfield for Memorial Day and what I believe Memorial Day is, and I don't want to get into it and take up a lot of time. But I wrote a line in there saying that Memorial Day is a day when a lot of swimming pools open up and people can go splashing if the weather's warm. But we lost a lot of guys in war in pools of blood. So there's good pools and there's bad pools in the world, and we should never forget that. And Todd, if I can end with one more saying, years ago I was fighting for veterans in the state of New Jersey didn't have to pay during the summer months to get on the beaches. And God, it was a 5-year battle. I was threatened to be put in jail. I kind of wish they had put me in jail over it, but we fought and we won and we got it done. And I was in a town in South Jersey that a councilman was arguing with me about why should veterans get on the beaches free when everybody else has to pay. And he just didn't get it. And I was smart enough to know I'm never going to convince him. But right behind him, just like Sean has the American flag behind him, I said to him, my reasons for why veterans shouldn't have to pay to get on beaches in the state of New Jersey is because what the flag stands for. And to me, what it stands for every day, especially a day like Memorial Day, is when I look at the white stripes on the American flag, that reminds me of the faces of the Gold Star mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and adopted children and orphans and grandparents. That scared look on their face that never goes away. And the red stripes remind me of the marks left of the years of crying, missing their loved one. And then the body of blue is that sadness, that gut-wrenching pain in their heart that never, ever, ever goes away. But then you look at the stars, and it's all the veterans smiling down saying, hey, our sacrifice was worth it. Our country's free. My family's free. People I didn't even know are free. And we're fine. We're up in heaven looking down. And listen, I don't know why. The biggest problem I have is, how do you address Memorial Day? You know, I was in a store yesterday buying a flag. My wife said, Joe, the flag outside needs to be replaced. And when I got to the counter, big major store, the girl charged me taxes. Now, I don't care what I pay for anything, but I'm always concerned about I shouldn't have to pay taxes on a flag. And I said to the cashier, I don't believe you have to pay taxes for an American flag. She says, everybody pays taxes. Call the governor if you don't like it. So I'm walking out of the store, and the store manager came up and says, we're going to look into that. I said, don't worry about it. I said, it was only a couple bucks. I said, but no, it bothers me more than you charge me taxes on the American flag is the fact that you sell them inside your store for a profit, but you don't fly them outside for patriotism. And I went back today, and there was a flag flying outside their store. So maybe we have to educate and whatever. But anyway, thank you, everyone, for what you contribute. And Sean and Todd, you're two of my heroes. You guys just do it every week, in and out, and pretty incredible the stories you tell.
This is an incredible community, and you're such an important part of it, Joe. Thank you very much. I am just going to end by saying, by sharing this. Beth Russell, I don't know how she does it, but she found Susan's uncle, David Rogers, war casualty, an article. I'll share it with you, Susan. She just did it on the fly right here. And so we'll be able to learn a little bit more about David Rogers. Thank you all for joining us tonight. What a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you all sharing this time with us. Yeah, Sean, you want to say something?
I just wanted to say that I had a great conversation with the veteran today and wished him a reflective. And that's what I say now, because I used to say Happy Memorial Day all the time, but I always just say, I hope you have a memorable and reflective Memorial Day.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Hey, we'll hope to see you on Thursday night. Glenn Flickinger is going to lead a conversation about the liberation of the POW camps at the end of World War II in Europe.